The Lost World has several hidden themes and messages, such as the theme of parenting and the butterfly effect, both of which are present yet hidden within the film. But none are far more complex, ironic, and honestly confusing as the morals of the characters and the consequences of their actions. Let's take a closer look. So, in the earliest phase of development, The Lost World is imagined to be a story of hunters and gatherers, and in the final version that is very clear. On one hand, we have the gatherers, made up of Ian Malcolm, Sarah Harding, Eddie Carr, and Nick Van Owen. These are the protagonists, and their goal is simple: take a complete photo record of the species on the island without interaction. Strictly observation and documentation. Now the hunters are made up of Peter Ludlow's InGen team. Their goal is to capture the dinosaurs and bring them back to the mainland, in order to pay for the lawsuits of Jurassic Park and help InGen out of its economic crisis. Roland Tembo, the African game hunter, has an additional goal of killing a male tyrannosaur. Overall, the hunters have little care for the well-being of these animals. They mistreat them and abuse them multiple times. The gatherers completely disapprove of this behaviour, and will actually go out of their way to not only pick up after InGen and care for these animals, but even go as far as to sabotage InGen in order to save the animals. Now this is where things get a little complicated. So InGen has set up a camp in which they have several assets contained. Here we learn that Nick Van Owen is not only a field photographer, but also a professional saboteur and a serious environmentalist, working for Greenpeace and Earth First in the past. It is now that Nick Van Owen assists Sarah in setting all the animals loose and even cutting all the fuel lines on their vehicles, which is why they burst into flames and explode later on. It's no secret that these actions, while favourable towards the dinosaurs, could have seriously injured or even killed one of the hunters. I mean, what if RJ and Roland didn't jump in time when the flaming car almost hit them? This is the first time Nick Van Owen indirectly puts the lives of animals over people and almost causes their death. Of course, he doesn't go out of his way to kill anyone, but he can definitely foresee the consequences of his actions, and obviously doesn't pay much attention to them. Nick Van Owen cares little for the safety and well-being of the hunters, due to their mistreatment of the dinosaurs. And it gets worse. Obviously after this, Nick brings an injured tyrannosaur, an infant, into his own camp to treat it. This tyrannosaur had its leg broken by Peter Ludlow in a deleted scene. Obviously, Nick sees the danger of his actions, but he believes that it's worth doing it, for the life of an animal. Nick also mentions that if he can treat it before its parents come, he can avoid a serious catastrophe. So here, Nick still wants to preserve the lives of the people around him, but not to the point at which he'd leave the tyrannosaur to die. That award goes to Malcolm. Either way, the rescue of the tyrannosaur leads to Eddie's death, and someone or something was going to die. But Nick couldn't actively foresee Eddie's death. He believed that if he could treat the baby Rex as fast as possible, he wouldn't draw in the attention of the parents, which is what he was telling Sarah the first time she saw it. Now, here's the interesting question. If Nick foresaw Eddie's death, would he let the Rex die or still carry it out? Honestly, it's difficult to say, as the injuries of the baby Rex are a direct result of InGen's actions. On the one hand, Eddie is a very good friend of Nick's and his workmate, but on the other hand, a baby Rex with a broken leg wouldn't last very long without its two loving parents, and I just don't think Nick would let that happen. Finally, we have the most controversial decision that Nick has ever made, sabotaging Roland's gun and therefore causing the deaths of several people. Roland has always been the opposite of Nick. While an antagonist, he has protagonistic characteristics, and favours the lives of people over animals. His duty is making sure everyone gets off the island alive, which means defending the camp when it's threatened by two tyrannosaurs. It is only now when Roland realises that his gun has been sabotaged, as he finds two empty, useless shells, instead of working bullets. Earlier on, when Roland left his gun beside a tree, Nick proceeded to remove both bullets. He did this because, earlier on, he learned that Roland was going to use his gun to shoot and kill one of the tyrannosaurs. Being the serious environmentalist and saboteur Nick is, Nick sabotaged Roland's gun in order to save the life of the tyrannosaur. This leads to the San Diego incident.
Predictability in complex systems. The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings in Peking, and in Central Park you get rain instead of sunshine.
This is the second time Nick has sabotaged InGen for the well-being of the animals, without considering the consequences it poses to the hunters. This time, things weren't so lucky. The female tyrannosaur chased the hunters out of the camp, killing both Carter and the paleontologist Robert Burke. As for the rest of the hunters, most of them were killed in the long grass, including RJ. And keep in mind that none of this would have happened if Nick had just left the infant Rex to die. While never truly intended or foreseen by the audience or the character, Nick has indirectly caused the deaths of all these people. Meanwhile at the camp, Roland stays behind to shoot the male tyrannosaur. However, upon realizing that he's been sabotaged, he takes the next best thing, tranquilizing it. You see, in tranquilizing the Rex as opposed to shooting it, Ludlow now had an asset to bring to San Diego, one that was alive and breathing. Roland had recaptured a dinosaur and it could now be used to make profit from the public. Now, after this, we all know that the Rex ate the crew of the ship, killed one civilian, the unlucky bastard, and killed Peter Ludlow. So, in sabotaging Roland's gun, Nick indirectly caused the entire San Diego incident, and therefore the deaths of several people. In fact, if you think about it, every death in the film, all but one of which were mentioned in this video, were caused by Nick Van Owen. I never mentioned Dieter Stark, but the only reason he ended up in that situation was because of the sabotage of the camp. Nick is responsible for all the horror that goes down in the Lost World, including the San Diego incident, and it's all because he prioritized the lives of animals over the lives of his colleagues and the hunters. Ultimately, I think some of his actions could have produced foreseeable consequences, but I think that Nick's drive for saving these animals was too powerful and led him to do questionable things. Other times, Nick couldn't have foreseen disastrous consequences. Unless you go on a dinosaur island with the mindset that a dead dinosaur is less dangerous than an alive one, then it's almost impossible to foresee things like Eddie's death, the Rex's finding the camp, and the San Diego incident. This is where the butterfly effect comes into play, which is present multiple times throughout the film. Nick's small actions in saving these animals led to horror and the deaths of many people, although it's completely unpredictable and almost impossible to foresee. With this, many audience members have asked if Nick Van Owen should have been an antagonist, even though he's portrayed as a protagonist. In my eyes, I'd say no, because he did it for a cause and he never went out of his way to hurt other people with those intentions. Then again, his little care for the lives of the hunters should be put up for questioning. Roland is essentially the opposite of Nick, instead prioritizing the lives of people over animals. And keep in mind, this includes the hunters and the gatherers. As a matter of fact, the entire InGen team shows little care for the well-being of the animals. But at least they care for each other. At the end of the day, everyone is at fault here. Even the InGen team goes out of their way to hurt these animals, with no just cause of saving their colleagues in return. So, is going out of your way to hurt animals just as bad as accidentally killing people for a cause of saving these animals? I'll let you decide. I think this is one of the greatest messages within the Jurassic Park saga. It's complex but important, and I greatly congratulate Spielberg for its inclusion. Now before I leave, I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to watch this video. I'm extremely thankful for that, and I hope you'll check out more of my channel in the future. Thanks guys. Cheers.